I'm Renee Rochelle, the founder and president of One True Match. I'm here to help you find and cultivate the love of your life. For over a decade, I've dedicated my life to the importance, purpose, and dynamic of human relationships. My team and I are disciplined by faith, love, and integrity to help our clients find the quality relationship they've always dreamt of. Each week, I will be sharing the tools and tips I've learned that have rooted my success as a matchmaker with other leaders around the world.
Hello, loves. Welcome back. I'm so excited to be sitting here on a kind of impromptu podcast today that we're doing from our office, and we have a lot of things going on with a lot of events, clients, and things, and every whatnot. So Connie and I had a moment to be together before she goes off to the UK and starts looking for matches for our clients over there. So I wanted to just grab her really quickly. I said, get on the director's chair with me so we can talk about the things that matter. So today, I'm actually going to let you lead this one and give the topic, because she said, I think this is a good one to talk about. So
hi everyone, it's always good to be back as per usual. And I always get from clients, and I know that Renee does too, when to compromise and when to stand your ground. And we talk about this a lot with clients.
We do.
And people also ask me, even friends, like, okay, you always talk about compromise, Connie. Compromise is so important in marriage. Compromise is so important in relationships, which it absolutely is. But there is also a fine line. So I know that one of the questions that we wrote in was, in their situation, she doesn't know whether to compromise or to stand her ground. So we're going to dig a little deeper on how we feel on, kind of those two ways, and when we'll bang on constantly about communication, but when is the fine line when to stand your ground?
Right, and I think, compromise can sometimes also be misunderstood with compatibility. And I know those are two totally different words, but when we talk about why people are compromising, it's often because they are not compatible in an area of conversation, communication, or regular routine of doing something.
Yeah.
Right? So if you kind of dissect it into like what we do as matchmakers on a daily basis is to really get to the root of where these major decisions come from. We have found over and over and over again, it's because two people are clearly coming from completely different backgrounds, and they are at a point where it's almost like a standoff where you would have to start compromising.
Yeah.
And so when you are faced with this question, because we don't want you to lose your values, your morals, and beliefs and compromise on something that is not biblically right or is not something that means really, high value to you.
Yeah.
But it is important when you're in a relationship, as you know, right? And a lot of our couples and just other in general, even friendships, right? You have to compromise to both get a win-win.
Yeah.
And to be able to move forward in the direction of this loving relationship you want to be in.
Yeah, and I think that people have this you've got to be really careful with compromising too, whether you're going into a relationship and forgetting all of your values. That's what sometimes, and I don't want to say this, but we have a lot of women that come to us and say that. Like, I thought I was compromising, but instead you're just letting the other person basically walk all over you. And it needs to be a fine line, like Renee just mentioned. It's all about your beliefs and things, but when it is compromise usually means both people are giving up a little bit. It doesn't mean one person.
It's a give and take.
Yeah, it's a give and take. And I think that's the most important thing, is that you go back and understand that other person's feelings and how they feel, and that what are they compromising, and even come to that conversation with your partner or your friend, or like Renee said, whoever this may be. We compromise with a lot of things in life, let's be honest. Even when you shop at the grocery store, you're compromising for another grocery store. Like, it sounds so silly, but it's really true. You're compromising every single day. So when it comes to that partner, instead of being like, okay, this is what I want, it's instead, okay, what are they compromising? What are they giving up for this decision? And what am I giving up for this decision? And I'm trying to think of a good example without being too direct of, like, really we compromise all the time. So maybe Renee will think of a good example of compromise.
Well, I will even say, so one of our matches that went out the other day, and they've been dating now for a while, they had a little bit of a tiff, I don't know what else to call it, but a difference of opinion when it came to the plans they were making for the holidays.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
And, especially when it comes to, you've spent all this time together, you've met the friends, you've met the family, but now you're going into the first holiday season together, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, I've always had my traditions going to my side of the family, and then it's like you want them to go to your side of the family. It's like, how do you divide that up?
Yeah.
Let alone add if you have children to it, and then you have time sharing and all these other things, right, that make things complicated. But it's really important in those early conversations, almost before the holidays. Like, I do this market research every year, and the best time to get the preventative medicine of good communication skills is to actually do it in October.
Yeah.
Because it's a month before, like,
any holiday,
all the holidays begin, to actually start having these conversations. So if you've met somebody in March, April, May, whatever, earlier on, start talking about what holidays look like and have those conversations. Because the problem is, the reality of it is we wait to talk about the things that matter until we're in it. And at that point, now we're faced with a compromise or standing your ground, which can turn into an ugly, awful argument.
Yeah, and I think that's why so many people, like you said, have tiffs or bicker at this time of year, because it is a tough time. And if you're not set up for success, having communication months beforehand, it's me versus you, my parents versus your parents.
And it shouldn't be a tit for tat.
It's not like that. And I think that's where, with compromising, it becomes then competition. Well, we did this for your family, and we did that for your family. It shouldn't be like that. And if it is such a hard middle ground,
switch shops, each year or whatever, right?
And so if that works for you, great. I know that works for me and my family, is that we do every other year and then a year on our own. Or a year with friends, whatever it may be. I know that Renee's had us for years too. And so it really just depends on what works for you guys. Or I know some people choose to do half a day with one family, half a day with another family. Or the week before Christmas, they go to one family. Week after Christmas, they do theirs. And then the week off, they do just them. And I think if you can't find a middle ground, then do it just you two. Like, some people might think that's a little crazy, but I'm like, okay, if you're going to continuously bicker about it and there isn't going to be a compromise on both sides instead of just one, then I hate to say it, do it on your own.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to be together, right? So part of togetherness, part of marriage is sharing.
Yeah.
And part of sharing is compromising. And so, if you're somebody that really struggles with compromising, I would work on that struggle first before you get into a relationship, so that you are an expert in how to have these conversations before you're in this, what feels like a contract relationship, tit for tat, and not a covenant marriage. And that's really what everybody's goal should be, if they want a, synchronized, incredible, loving relationship for the rest of their life that they want to grow together in. So I would say on that. Now, on the standing ground part, because let's talk a little bit about that, and let's talk we're kind of talking about couples, right, when you're starting to date and be engaged and married, but let's talk to our singles out there.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, during the dating journey, it sometimes is really too early to know. And what people we find over and over and over do when we listen to hundreds and thousands of dating people's stories when we're asking about their life before we introduce them to, obviously, our clients, is that this is an art that is lost. And sometimes, because we're so stuck in our ways, or our past has created us to be this way, we stand our ground too hard.
Yeah.
And it almost is unapproachable to be in a relationship with somebody that then the question is, why are they even dating? Because they're not willing to compromise on the littlest things. Like, I mean, if you want to be in a relationship, you should prioritize whatever schedule you have, but add in a person to prioritize to see each other.
Yeah,
right?
Like, that person doesn't become the back burner. If, like, we always say this, you have to prioritize dating. And I even say this, I probably said this on so many podcasts before, even being married, you have to act and you have to be like, of course it's your number one, but you need to make it, even when you're busy with everything, the holidays are coming up. It's like another career that you love and you're going to put first. And I think it's the same way with dating. I have to say to some of our clients sometimes, hey, like, remember, they're like, I've got this, and this, and I can't do this, and I can't do that, and oh, I don't know where I'm going to meet this person. Well, then that really is not any kind of compromise, and you have to make them a priority, because if you don't start off on the right foot, you're definitely not going to end on it.
Right. And on the stand your ground part of things, the only time that I feel like that is acceptable is when somebody is challenging your morals, values, beliefs.
Yeah.
And or somebody is accusing you of something that obviously is something of their past that is not what you are.
Yeah.
And you stay in it for lust reasons, for chemistry or whatever it is, and they're not long-term reasons to last a lifetime.
Yeah, and you have to be very careful when it comes to standing your ground. And we also will say this, is that you may come with this checklist of, this is to our singles, is come with this checklist of, I want this, 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 and this. I want someone with blue eyes, brown eyes, blonde hair, dark hair, 6 foot tall, 6 foot. Okay, they're things that you can compromise because you want to fall in love with this person's heart and who they are, and not just their appearance as well. So when we say, and we'll say on some of these podcasts, that that's when compromising should be done. And of course, like you just mentioned, that's when values, you stand your ground, but there's things that you definitely need to compromise on. And it's just the start of a practice for that future person, I feel like.
Right, and it's kind of like also, and we're kind of going off the map, but I feel like we get this all the time with our just, people's past dating stories. That's what we hear all the time, right? Is also, like, we talk about types too, right? Like,
Yes,
how many times do our clients say to us, like, who they've ended up with, right? Or begun their life with, is like how I like to say, because ended up with sounds like the end, right? This is the beginning of their life together, right? They will say, it is no one that I imagined, but it's so much better than I could have ever imagined.
Yeah.
And that is compromise to the full max, I feel like, because at the end of the day, what they're basically saying is there was a couple of things that didn't meet my checklist, or there was a couple of things that I didn't think I wanted, but ultimately, God knew who I needed and so much more, because together we make a better person of each other. We are a better person of each other. We're a better couple. And for that, that is so much better than we imagined. And that is where sometimes our types are not what we thought, whether it be height, whether it be look, whether it be just even personality. Like, our extroverts are like, oh, I want other extroverts. But sometimes it's good to have somebody that's a little bit more introvert, or introverts need someone to pull a little bit out. Or some people are like, oh, I like more of the geeky chic, or I like, whatever it is. If you haven't tried something different, then you are standing your ground and you may still always be alone.
Yeah.
Because part of that...
You're too busy focusing on that checklist.
Yes, exactly. So I would say for advice in that department, I mean, again, we kind of just threw this out there because I think it's so important that we talk about the big topics, and that people get stuck in a rut when it comes to dating, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to communication. And the reality of this sounds like the dumbest exercise ever. But no one knows you better than you. And no one knows yourself better than your own strengths and weaknesses and what you're good at and what you're bad at. Practice talking to yourself with God in the mirror.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy. But the reality of it is, you're not going to scream at yourself, right? But you're going to look eyeball to eyeball, and you're going to be your most vulnerable looking at yourself to say, Lord, and you're talking to God. So you're not just talking to yourself, but you're having this conversation to God and say, you see my face. You see my feelings. You see my heart. Help me to express this in a way that I'm calmer, that I'm patient, that I'm willing, like I put the willingness in me to want to will a relationship that's going to work together, so that we let all of the frustration or all of the past conversations control our future conversations. Let's stop it here today. Let me speak with you in my mind and my heart, because I love this person, and let's come up with a plan together so that we grow and we're not continuously being in these situations.
Yeah, and also ask for the help with communication, because when it does come to standing your ground or compromising, it really comes to communication too. If you come off hot-headed, like you have no patience, anything like that, it's not coming across that you even want to compromise. It sounds like you're standing your ground from the get-go, that there isn't room for communication, and there should always be room for communication.
Absolutely.
And of course, depending on the topic, but you should always be able to speak openly and to be able to discuss what is going on and how you feel when it comes to these big topic conversations. And usually it is, when it comes to compromise, it usually what gets heated and why people are asking us this is because it's to do with a big topic.
Absolutely.
And if it's that way, then definitely just make sure that you're communicating correctly. And like Renee said, ask for that patience, ask for time. I mean, sometimes time is what you need to really decide whether you need to stand your ground or compromise. Because making those, Renee will say over and over and over again, a 72-hour rule. Go back and think about it before even asking for compromise.
Call a time out when it's just so you have time to reflect, process, and then have the conversation as needed. And I think another thing that you're saying too, that talking about that mirror exercise. No. Be real with yourself. You're looking in your own eyes.
Yeah,
but the other thing
don't fool you.
that I also tell everybody, remember, God sees and hears everything. So at the end of the day, when you are looking at yourself and you've had time to reflect and think, and you're about to go back in and have a really intelligent, godly conversation with your mate, right, to actually get somewhere so you don't keep opening up a wound, right?
Yeah.
Is to think about where you are, your mannerisms, pull yourself out of the situation when you're with your mate and go up into wherever you believe, God is all around us, right? Looking in on what your attitude is, maybe you cross your arms, whatever that energy that you're projecting out, change that. Look at yourself in the mirror and say, honestly, I was not the best. I could have cursed less. I could have, done this differently.
Yeah.
I could have not let my emotions surface that were so visual to this individual that of course they're going to come back angry or things like that.
Yeah, and even if it's tone of voice, I know that I have to. I will say this, and Renee has known me, of course, for many, many years now. I don't even, and even now, sometimes I catch myself doing it, and I'm like, oh, great, and it's the slightest thing. It might be the slightest tone in your voice. And I know that's something that I have to continuously work on, is I have to put myself out of it. I actually get myself back into matchmaker mode, back into work mode. That's how I realized, because I'm like, if someone else would speak to me that way, I wouldn't like it. So whatever works for you, but that's just a small thing, I think. If I huff and puff to my husband, everyone knows Jeremy, and everyone knows if I use a slight tone in my voice, I'll catch myself off, be like, Connie, go back into matchmaker mode, go back into
speak to others the way that you would want to be spoken to, and remember, you are compromising with yourself to be your best version of yourself. So if you can't compromise with your own tone, you can't control your own words that come out of you, honestly, you need to take that up with God so that you're a better version. Because at the end of the day, I say every day, be the best version of yourself, which God will then bless you with the better version of yourself together.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're with somebody that just does not compromise and never will compromise, if you're not doing it yourself, you're not giving it your best shot.
Yeah.
Now, if you have two people that aren't compromising, you're both just in the wrong relationship.
That's
it
not
shouldn't be that difficult.
Yeah, and it's also we know everyone's human. No one's perfect. There's no such thing as perfect. But we always have to continue working on ourselves like that. So even if you're listening to this and you've been married for 20 years, or you're in a very new relationship, or you're just out there dating or single, no one's perfect. And if you catch yourself doing things like this, or not knowing when to compromise, acting a bit sassy, or however you may act, or again, not standing your ground enough, because there's definitely that aspect of it as well. Just go back and check yourself in a different, like you said, taking that time on yourself, or however it works for you. Don't beat yourself up over it. Just make sure you're reflecting and also using good communication in that time as well.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And I hope that you have all found this helpful and beneficial when you're thinking about, your next relationship, or you're thinking about when you're out dating or talking to somebody, or, when you're in the relationship you're in right now. If you are not willing to even utter the word compromise or have a covenant relationship to thrive towards a, God first and then the relationship and everybody else, then ultimately you're probably not in the right relationship that has the same morals, beliefs, and values that you do.
Yeah, and it's just so important to reflect on yourself, to make yourself a better version of you, as we say all over, to be in that relationship as well.
Absolutely. So we are going to love and leave you, and we hope that you have a blessed rest of your day, and we can't wait for our next talk.
Bye.
Bye. It's been another great talk on this episode of One True Talks by Renee Rochelle. I look forward to our next chat. Please write in your questions and comments so I can be sure to talk about whatever it is you want to discuss in our next upcoming episode. Lots of love. God bless. XOXO.